Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode with your host Marco Medina. Today I'm gonna show you my truck. Let's go wake up the whole neighborhood. Dang, it's cold in Atlanta. Got tight. Okay. Y'all ready for this cold start? Even though it's a truck, it's still a 5-speed. Clutch in, neutral, pray. Woo! Turn off that air. You know, we're not warm enough to have some air. Y'all wanna hear from the outside? Y'all wanna hear this? I wake up the neighborhood with this, especially coming in with the Subaru, leaving with the truck. Everybody like, God damn, he just came in, now he leaving? Oh, different car, different car. This is my truck. My 2000 Dodge Dakota, 4.7 V8, 5-speed. Absolutely love this truck. That's one of the things that it definitely needs. Very torquey. You can even, like, at a stop sign, you can go in second. You don't even need to go on first. It's loud. It's very loud. I'm having to scream in this video just because I don't know if you're actually hearing me or not. Because when you're in this car, it's very hard to have a conversation. Like, if I floor it, which I'm going to do in a minute, it wastes a lot of gas. But two, you can't have a conversation with anybody in this car. That's one of the reasons why my brother-in-law got rid of it. The noise, and essentially he just wanted more space. He got a bigger Dakota with the family size cab. This one's perfect for me, but I understand if you're taller, you can't really adjust your seats. And if you got long legs, like, it's a pain to sit in here for long distances. That can be like anything, like 30-40 minute drives. It's a pain in here. I'm short. I'm pretty short, so this works for me perfectly. The seats are leather Dodge Durango seats. We swapped them over. Well, he swapped them over when he owned the truck. He wired them up, so everything works. No heaters, but they're great little seats. Headliner I have to do. I have the piece, but I haven't done that. I gotta get to that. These are fun trucks. They actually are. You would think they're not, but they are. It's a fun little truck, believe me. Oh, the Durangos have a little center console here that I have, like, tell you how much you have towards empty, how much you have gas labs, what direction you're going in, the temperature outside, the miles per gallon that you're getting, things like that. I want to get that wired up, so I would just like to know essentially how much gas I have until empty, but I also want to know how I've been driving to hopefully improve my fuel economy. Stock steering wheel, stock 5-speed. It has an LSD, so you can really do some burnouts. You can tow, I believe, up to 6,100 or 6,800 pounds, so 6,800 at most. I've never tried that. I've never really towed anything. Actually, we did tow my friend's Junior Datsun and his big blue truck, his C10. So I was pretty happy with it. It could tow it, no problem. I'm gonna floor it a little bit for you guys, and then I'm gonna take you guys back home just so I can tell you in detail how I came about this truck, why I bought it, and essentially how it's treated me and what I'm gonna do to it next. gas. I'm not really good with the big body types. Like the Subaru's so small and so easy to control. The truck is like a nightmare to me. I feel like I'm in a skyscraper and I'm afraid of trucks. So I'm afraid of heights, so it's really scary. But if you floor her, she does not let up, bro, guys. She does not let up. I can't floor her every single turn because it's a lot of gas. But essentially, I love this truck. I love this car. I'm glad I bought it. Let's go back inside and talk about why I bought it and all those good things. Woo! Nice little truck. Downshift that mother. Handbrake doesn't really work, so I always park it in first gear. Boom. Take out the key. Bam, bam. Okay guys, so that's a quick little footage of my 2000 Dodge Dakota. Now I'm gonna explain the story about this truck. So first thing you need to know, I'm going pro in this video. I got the lighting, I got the microphone. Let's get started. If you don't like when I sit here and talk to the camera, come back tomorrow. This is gonna be like my test video. I'm gonna update you guys on the Dakota first, and then I'm gonna update you guys on the Subaru, because neither builds have a lot of footage, like not a lot of video. It's just a lot of photos. So this is my test photo run. Anyways guys, this is gonna be like a slideshow, and we're gonna start with the first time I actually saw this truck. My brother-in-law Cameron, who actually owned this truck back when he was, I think, in his high school days or early college days, basically right around my age. He owned this truck way back then. He went and got it up north, I believe. Here's gonna be some few pictures on the screen. And he ended up doing the shocks. He ended up tinting the windows. He ended up getting a new bed for it. He ended up getting painted. He painted it by like spray, but he painted it, and at one point it looked like a cop car. It was kind of funny, but he actually took care of his truck. And then his brother, his friend named Martin, needed a car, so he's like, hey Martin, I have 3 cars right now. I have my truck, I have, I think, a Volkswagen and a BMW. He had 3 cars at that time, and he was like, you could just buy it off from me. Basically, you need a car, I have too many cars, you can just buy it off from me. Take a few steps forward in the years, and Martin now doesn't use the truck. Martin has the truck, has been sitting for like 2 months. He got in a wreck, had to get a new fender, I think a new bumper as well, and then he went ahead and painted the car. A little questions about the paint job when I first saw it, but he went ahead and painted the car. How I met the truck and how I got introduced to the truck, her name's actually Lucio. Her first owner named her. I told my brother-in-law essentially that I wanted a truck because after my Acura car accident, when they T-boned the Malsi, my Acura RXX, I was like, dang, look, trucks are safe. They might be expensive on gas, but trucks are safe. You get around everywhere. They're very convenient. You can just like hook them up, put things in the back, tow things, go anywhere you really want to go. I fell in love with trucks after I got hit. He let me borrow his truck. So I was like, you know what? I can't go back to a regular car. It either has to be a Subaru or a truck. So he sends me a picture of this truck, right? And I'm like, no, I don't want this truck. This looks like beat up. I don't want this truck. The paint job looks horrible. Okay, a few months pass later down the road, and I'm like, you know what? Let's actually go check out this truck. We go and we check out this truck, and it's in this garage where Martin hasn't even touched this freaking truck for like 2-3 months. It's been sitting there. It looked really, really beat up. He turns the key and it starts right up, and I'm like, okay, not bad. Then we turn on the AC after it warms up a little, and I'm like, it's nice and cold. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't want this truck. It's going to be a money pit. It's going to take a lot of work to get done. I don't really want this truck. But I'm also on my left side, I'm thinking, well, my brother-in-law loves this truck. He took care of this truck. He's going to know how to maintain this truck. So I'm like, maybe I get this truck, maybe I don't. At the end of the day, I ended up buying the truck, of course, because we have today. But I ended up buying the truck for $850. I just essentially told him, I think he was asking 12 or 13, maybe even 15 at one time. But I essentially told him, hey, look, I need a car. I don't have a lot of money because the Subaru was like, at that time was like halfway done. So I was like money pit. I was stuck. I was just like, look, I could do $850 for you here today, cash. And he looked at me. And I think he just gave me a deal because, you know, he was my brother-in-law, and essentially we were just buying back from him from when he bought it. But I don't know. But I ended up getting that truck for $850, and I was super, super happy at that time. So then my brother-in-law sends me this picture, and he's like, it's home. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. I've never been a truck owner. I wasn't really excited. I was just like, okay, I got a new car. Like, I'm happy. I'm getting ready for like another build. We start diagnosing the things that it's gonna need. And the number one thing that we found was the rack and pinion. It was like when he got hit, the rack and pinion broke. It broke right in the middle. One wheel would go like this and one wheel would go like this when you turn. And if you went the other way, it would go like that. So you would never really get a straight and narrow. And he said that it was like hell trying to drive that truck home. That's the first thing we did. We had to go ahead and change out that rack and pinion. Went and got one from AutoZone. I think it was like 140 or 150 with a core charge. After that, the speedo sensor in the back, the one that goes on the rear diff, it wasn't reading. So it was a code that the truck had, so it wasn't reading. So I went ahead and got one of those from the junkyard, and that's when I realized that this truck was basically a junkyard build. Because literally the day that I went for things at the junkyard at Pull Apart, was the North one, I believe. They had like 3 or 4 or 5 of them, I believe. It was like good day to go. And I was like, this is it. This is my junkyard build. And I kept learning and learning what to look for. But because that speedo wasn't working, I'd be driving, you know, I'd hit like a good 40, 50, and then that speedo would just... And I'm like, what the heck just happened? And it would happen over and over. All the freaking lights would pop up. And essentially what that ended up being, there was a ground in the front of the harness that wasn't actually grounded. I think when the guys repainted the truck, they didn't tightening it all the way. It took us a while to find because it was annoying. It was all the way in the front. But once we found it, we went ahead and tightened it, and the truck was nice and working. And I was happy. I got home. I cleaned my truck. I'm like, okay, she running good. You know, she's got a brand new rack and pinion. Brand new. I put a middle seat. I put that third seat in. It's an actual armrest. If you put it up, it becomes a third seat. And I got that at Junker for like $10. I went ahead and swapped out a new rim, 15-inch stock Dodge wheel on it because the other one was letting air out. So new wheel, new rack and pinion, new speedo sensor, and then I drove the truck like that. I was super happy. I hated, what I hated the most about the truck was the bed. It looked horrible when I first got it. It still kind of looks bad right now, but it's nice and well covered up. Anyways, back then I hated that truck. It made so much noise. My brother-in-law actually got that bed for $80 when he owned the truck because his last one, the original one, had a lot of rust on it, and he found this one for $80. The welds are horrible. I think the previous owner wanted to drop it down on the floor. The first night, I actually took a picture of when I brought the Subaru home and the truck home, and both cars were together, and that was the happiest that I was in a long time. My cars weren't running for like a long time, and I actually had to borrow his truck to have a car for a while. I think I borrowed his truck for like 1 or 2 months. It was a long time. Anyways, I had the Subaru back home, and I had my new truck, and I was very, very happy. My buddy Junior, who's building his C10 at my place right now, he actually needed my help of my truck. We went and we rented out a U-Haul, and we took his Datsun that he's putting an SR 240 engine into it, but not yet. More details on that later. We drove that truck all the way to Big Cat's house, which is another one of our friends. We drove that truck all the way to his house. That was a far drive. I think Big Cat's like 30-40 minutes away from us. And then once we were there, we went to his other house to pick up the C10. And the C10 was a freaking pain to load up, guys. That thing was annoying. It had 2 or 3 flat tires, and it is heavy. It is heavy as frick, man. And we had the dolly. We didn't even get the full-size U-Haul. We just had the dolly. So it was like 4 big dudes. I'm like a small dude pushing this goddamn truck to go up on the dolly. My truck, my Lucille, pulling the C10, big C10, all the way home. And I'm happy. At this point, I'm happy with my truck. I have a nice truck, 5-speed. I'm enjoying my truck. I'm a truck boy now. At this point, the Subaru's like I still had to put in the dash in. I still had to figure out a bunch of wiring situations. So at this point, I was just driving my truck. Every weekend, I would check the junkyard. Every single weekend, I would be like, hey Cameron, let's go to the junkyard. Hey Cameron, you doing it today? Let's go to the junkyard. Hey Cameron, let's go to the junkyard. And one day he was like, this is an HO. And I'm like, what the heck's an HO? I don't know anything about Chrysler, Jeep. I don't know nothing about nothing American. So he was like, the Jeep Grand Cherokees, the HO, I think it stands for high output. These have the same engine as our trucks. Because he has the same engine, his truck has the same engine as my truck, 4.7, 5-speed. We're going to have to do a review of his truck later on in the series. But essentially, we're there and we see this HO, and he's like, you should take the intake. And I do. I take out the intake. He ends up finding leather seats for his truck, and we come back home and get to work. He shows me what the screws I need to take off. I get access to my intake. I clean it real clean as I can, and I put on my new HO intake. I also want to get HO cams because he already did that, and he's making me mod my truck a lot more than I ever thought I could do. I ended up doing a full oil change that day as well. I used 5W30 Valvoline, full synthetic, and of course with that Mopar filter. After I went to Harbor Freight, I'm cruising back home, and as I'm cruising, I'm like, oh shoot, what's up with my battery? Because I'm looking at my gauge, and my battery keeps like killing itself later down the line. So I pull over and I call my brother-in-law. He's like, yo, that's your alternator. So I'm like, god dang it. So I head back to the junkyard, and I'm looking through the junkyard, and I find an alternator, and I find this other, because I went to a different junkyard at that point, I find this other different truck. It's also an 02. I believe it was an automatic, but it was like the sports edition, and it has this full size, perfect Dodge stock OEM plastic bed tray. And I pick it up, and it fits into my truck perfectly, beautifully. It's just a couple screws here and there. I had to cut my freaking fenders for the rear because in my truck they're horrible, as you can see in the previous picture, but I ended up cutting mine and setting this one right on top of it, and it looked mint. Okay, so next day, probably next weekend after that, or the weekend after that, another junkyard find a carpet. The carpet at Pull Apart was amazingly cheap. It was like $14 for a full-size carpet. So I went and took out that mother, and then me and my brother-in-law hit the car wash, and we cleaned this thing as much as we could to get as much as coffee stains, old oil stains, bugs, boogers, farts, get everything out of there. And this carpet took like 2 or 3 weeks for it to freaking dry. So probably a week after that, after the carpet is still sitting there, it needs to get cleaned up, I go and get a new hub, because my old hub, my wheel bearing actually what it was, but I just went ahead and replaced the whole hub that I got off the RT from the junkyard. It was messing up my steering essentially, and had a lot of play in it. Here's some footage for you guys for when Junior worked on it, and he showed me how much play in it, and it was a lot. It got a lot worse over time. When I noticed it was a little bit, but when Junior sent me the video, I could see it was a lot. But I went ahead and replaced those wheel hubs, and after that, I'm like, okay, I'm happy now. I'm building on my truck. I'm like, okay, modding time, and I find some RT wheels, and the RT wheels are different than the stock wheels that I have on my truck. These are 15s. The stock ones are 15s. The RTs are 17s, and they have a different wheel cap. Here's a little inspiration of what I want to go for, but of course with my color. But essentially, I find these wheels, I find a great deal on them, and I buy them. It was a steal. It was far. I think it was like an hour away from me, but I buy them. And that same weekend, actually, we end up going to the junkyard again. We go to the junkyard a lot in this series because essentially our trucks are from the junkyards, because the junkyard has some good builds. Junkyard has some good parts if you know what you're looking for. And that day, my brother-in-law gets lucky. He finds a freaking LSD diff for his truck. His original diff was an LSD, but this one is. So it was a pain to get out, and it was heavy, guys. It was really heavy. But we get that mother out. A lot of people, I think 2 guys came by and helped us drop it down, and then we had to push this freaking diff all the way to the front of Pull Apart because they didn't bring out the van. I was upset. I wasn't happy. Got back home, drop off the diff, and since we're exhausted and this carpet is pretty easy to install, we go ahead and we install this carpet. I didn't even help my brother-in-law install his diff, so RIP to him. But I installed my carpet, he installs his diff. Carpet, I give the inside a new update and a new refresh, and it looks mint. I have never seen a carpet this clean in any other truck because everybody else beats the crap out of their carpet. Anyways, my carpet looked mint. My brother-in-law was working on his diff. I have a center console that I need to install. I just have to figure out wiring, and I have a headliner that I need to install, as well as we had to do some videos because I want to bondo up and repair those RT wheels that I mentioned. And finally, Big Cat's over here taking off the original stock wheels, and this is where we're at today. This is how the truck looks. I'll put a little before and after for you guys, and I'm gonna continue to mod it. I know this video is kind of long, kind of boring, But this is my story on my truck, and I really wanted to share with you guys. So please don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe. It's going to be a lot of car content going on, whether that's Subaru, whether that's trucks, whether that's another car that I don't even own yet. Maybe my buddy's E30, Junior has that C10. So many freaking cars, so many freaking automotive series coming to you guys. I just can't wait until I get my new camera, but I just wanted to update you guys. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Adios.